My bitchy wife cheated and lied. She gaslit me, but my brutal, calculated revenge imploded her entire world. You won't believe what happened next. Okay, Reddit. I'm posting this from a throwaway because if this ever got back to anyone, my life would be even more of a dumpster fire than it already is. My wife, Sarah, and I have been married for 5 years, together for 8. We built a life, a home, thought we were solid. Turns out, solid was just the convenient facade she liked to maintain while she chipped away at the foundation with a damn sledgehammer. Things started changing a few months ago. Small stuff at first. She'd be out with the girls more, but those girls were suddenly very busy, never answering if I called. Her phone became an extension of her hand, locked tighter than Fort Knox. If I ever accidentally saw a notification pop up, she'd snatch it away, bristling, claiming I was spying or didn't trust her. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just a phase, maybe she needed space, women do that sometimes, right? She started dressing differently too, less comfy, more trying. And the compliments dried up. From her, I mean. She was suddenly too busy, too tired, too annoyed with everything I did. Every little thing was a criticism. My cooking, my hobbies, even how I breathed. It was like I was living with a stranger who actively disliked me, yet still expected me to pay all the bills and be her emotional punching bag. She'd snap at me for the smallest things, then act like I was the unreasonable one for getting upset. It was a constant gaslight fest, and honestly, I was starting to believe her. I felt like I was losing my mind, walking on eggshells in my own home. I loved her, or at least the person I thought she was, and I was desperate to fix whatever was broken. Then came the turning point. About 3 weeks ago, she suddenly started working late, a lot. Like, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. She works in marketing, so sometimes that happens, but this was every other night. She'd come home smelling faintly of a different cologne, not mine, and not her usual perfume. When I asked about it, she'd snap, "It's the office building, it's old, smells weird, leave me alone, I'm exhausted." One Tuesday, she said she was working from home, but then had to pop into the office for a quick meeting. She left her laptop bag in the living room, something she never does. Usually, it's glued to her side. After she left, I was just tidying up, and I picked it up to move it. It was heavier than usual. Curious, I unzipped it, thinking maybe she'd left a book or something in there she'd forgotten. What I found wasn't a book. It was a small, velvet jewelry box. Inside, a silver locket. My heart sank, because it definitely wasn't mine, and it definitely wasn't a gift for me. I knew it. That gut feeling hit me like a ton of bricks. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to open the locket. There were 2 photos inside. One was her, smiling, looking happier than she'd looked with me in months. The other was a man I'd never seen before, with his arm around her. The photo was taken at what looked like a resort, a tropical one. The dates on the back of the photos were from last month. The same week she told me she was on a mandatory work conference out of state. My blood ran cold. The sheer audacity. The lies. It wasn't just working late, it was an entirely separate life, a whole damn vacation with some other guy, while I was home, worried sick about her. I put the locket back exactly as I found it, zipped the bag, and sat there, numb. The world felt like it was spinning, but I was frozen. When she finally got home around noon, all chirpy and asking if I'd missed her, I just stared at her. My voice was surprisingly calm, considering the hurricane raging inside me. "How was your quick meeting?" I asked, trying to keep my tone level. She launched into a detailed, elaborate story about some client presentation, how it went perfectly, how her boss praised her. Lies, every single word. She even made eye contact, totally convincing. It was chilling to watch. When she finished, beaming, I just said, "That's nice." Funny, Because I found something in your laptop bag that tells a slightly different story about where you were last month. Her face went white. The smile vanished, replaced by a mixture of shock and pure, unadulterated panic. What are you talking about? She stammered, trying to sound offended, but her eyes were darting around the room. I walked over to the bag, slowly unzipped it, pulled out the velvet box, and opened it. I held it out to her, the locket gleaming. This, I said, my voice barely a whisper, tells me you were in a tropical resort with this man, not at a work conference. She snatched the locket from my hand, her face contorting. For a second, I thought she was going to cry, but then the anger flared. How dare you go through my things? She shrieked, instantly flipping it back on me. You have no right. You're a snoop. This is my privacy. She started screaming about how I was controlling and paranoid, desperately trying to divert. It was classic deflection, and it made my stomach churn. She never even tried to deny the locket or the man. Just attacked me for finding it. The complete lack of remorse was a punch to the gut. The confrontation escalated into a full-blown shouting match, or rather, she shouted, and I just stood there, trying to process the sheer audacity. She called me every name under the sun, accused me of being insecure, of not trusting her, even said I was ruining her career by distracting her with my baseless accusations. Baseless? I was holding the damn evidence. She even tried to spin it as a team-building exercise with a new client who was a bit handsy, but she handled it. The tropical resort photos, the intimate locket, the beaming smiles, none of it screamed team-building. It was a pathetic, transparent attempt to lie her way out of it, and it solidified everything for me. This wasn't a mistake, this was a calculated, ongoing betrayal. The shouting eventually died down, replaced by a cold silence. She went to the bedroom and slammed the door, expecting me to come beg for forgiveness, I suppose. But I didn't. I just sat on the couch, the weight of her lies pressing down on me. The initial shock began to wear off, replaced by a profound, soul-crushing sadness. It wasn't just the affair, it was the years of deception, the moments I replayed in my head where her tiredness was probably her exhausted from her other life, her stress was probably fear of getting caught. Every "I love you" she ever said felt like a poison dart. I felt foolish, utterly stupid for not seeing it sooner. The woman I married, the woman I trusted implicitly, was a stranger. And that stranger had systematically dismantled my world, brick by brick, with a smile. For anyone out there going through something similar, you need to understand that this betrayal cuts deeper than you can imagine. It's not just about the sex, it's about the emotional rape, the disrespect, the utter contempt for your shared life. If you're finding this helpful, consider subscribing and liking this video, it really helps the channel grow and reach more people who might need to hear this. The days that followed were a blur of raw emotion. The sadness morphed into a burning anger, then back to a hollow ache. I stopped eating, barely slept. My mind was a broken record, playing her lies, her excuses, her dismissiveness over and over. I'd loved her so fiercely, defended her against my own family when they hinted she was a bit too self-absorbed. Now, I saw their concerns through a new, horrifying lens. My trust, which I'd given so freely, felt like a gaping wound. It wasn't just Sarah who had betrayed me, it felt like I had betrayed myself by being so blind, so foolishly optimistic. I started isolating myself. Friends would call, but I couldn't bring myself to talk. How do you explain to people that your entire reality just imploded? That the person you swore vows to, the one who promised forever, was leading a double life? The shame was immense, even though I knew logically it wasn't my fault. It felt like it was. Like I wasn't enough, like I had failed. Every memory we shared, every inside joke, every quiet moment felt tainted, twisted into something ugly. Was any of it real? Or was it all just a performance for her? I spent hours just staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, looking for signs I'd missed. And they were there, so many of them, glaring now in hindsight. The way she'd avoid eye contact when talking about her long days, the sudden interest in new lingerie that she never wore for me, the way she'd clutch her phone if I even walked into the room. It was like a cruel highlight reel of my own naivety. The emotional impact was catastrophic. It felt like a death, but without the closure. It was the death of a future I'd painstakingly built, the death of a trust that would likely never be fully restored with anyone again. It was a suffocating grief. I tried to talk to her again a few days later, hoping that perhaps the initial shock had worn off for her, and she might offer some semblance of an explanation or, dare I hope, remorse. Big mistake. She was still in full defense mode, but now she'd concocted an even more elaborate narrative. This new story involved the locket being a gag gift from a colleague, the man in the photo being a family friend she ran into by chance on this work trip that had unexpectedly turned into a brief leisure detour because the client rescheduled. She even managed to shed a few crocodile tears, claiming I was the one hurting her with my unfounded accusations and lack of faith. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She kept saying, "If you loved me, you'd believe me. You'd trust me." The irony was so thick I could choke on it. The woman who just got caught with undeniable proof of an affair was now trying to guilt-trip me for not trusting her. That's when something shifted inside me. The sadness didn't disappear, but it was overshadowed by a cold, clear resolve. This wasn't about saving a marriage anymore. This was about self-preservation. She wasn't just lying, she was actively trying to destroy my sanity, make me question my own reality. It was a vicious, calculated attack. I realized then that there was no working on the marriage. There was no healing. Not with her. She wasn't sorry she cheated, she was only sorry she got caught. And her immediate response was to gaslight me into oblivion. That's when I made my decision. It was clear as day, I needed to get out, and I needed to do it in a way that protected me, but also, let's just say, gave her a taste of her own medicine. I wasn't going to be the pathetic, crying husband. I was going to be smart, and I was going to be ruthless. She thought she was so clever, so untouchable. She was about to find out how wrong she was. My first step was to secure my finances. She handled most of the joint accounts, and while I earned more, she had a knack for making me feel like she was the financially savvy one. Turns out, she was savvy, but only for herself. I quietly contacted my bank, opened a new, solo account, and transferred a significant portion of my salary that had always gone into our joint account. I also started gathering all financial documents, mortgage statements, utility bills, car titles, bank statements, everything. I made copies and stored them in a safe place outside the house. She wouldn't notice these changes immediately, giving me a crucial window. Next, I called a divorce lawyer. I didn't tell her yet, of course. I just got a consultation, laid out everything, showed him the evidence I had, the locket, the photos. I'd discreetly taken pictures of them before putting the locket back. He advised me on protecting my assets and preparing for what would likely be a messy divorce, given her personality. He stressed the importance of documentation, and I started keeping a detailed journal of her continued strange hours, her dismissive behavior, and every lie she told. This wasn't just for the divorce, it was for my own sanity, a way to anchor myself to reality when she tried to twist things. Then came the really hard part, emotionally detaching. I started to distance myself. I stopped asking where she was going, stopped engaging in her arguments. When she came home late, I'd already be in bed, pretending to sleep. If she tried to pick a fight, I'd give her a bland, non-committal answer and walk away. She clearly noticed the shift. She started to get even more agitated, probably because she was losing her control over me, and maybe, just maybe, she sensed something was off. Her gaslighting attempts became more frantic, but they no longer affected me. I was a ghost in my own home, observing, planning. The pain was still there, a dull throb, but it was now channeled into strategy. This wasn't about revenge in the emotional sense yet, it was about protecting myself legally and financially from a truly toxic person. The quiet detachment really started to mess with her. She thrived on conflict and drama, on being the aggrieved party, and when I stopped playing along, she got restless. She started to hint that I was being distant, that I was causing problems, trying to bait me back into our usual argument cycle. But I held firm. I'd just nod, or say, okay, and continue doing whatever I was doing. It drove her absolutely insane. One evening, she came home particularly late, smelling heavily of a different, musky cologne, definitely not the office, old building, smell she claimed. She stomped in, found me watching TV, and slammed her purse on the table. You know, she began, her voice dripping with venom, it's really lovely how supportive you are of my career. Just so encouraging. I didn't even look away from the screen. Is there something you need, Sarah? Oh, I need a lot of things. Like a husband who actually cares where I am, who asks about my day, who doesn't just sit there like a lump. She yelled. I calmly muted the TV. I asked you earlier this week, you gave me a full explanation. I'm choosing to believe you. Her jaw dropped. That was not the reaction she expected. She wanted me to challenge her, to give her an opening to unleash another tirade. You know what? I think you're having an affair. She suddenly declared, eyes blazing, throwing out a classic deflection. That's why you're so quiet, so withdrawn. You're cheating on me, aren't you? I just looked at her, deadpan. Sarah, you're projecting. I think we both know who's been having an affair. Her face went from red to purple. She shrieked, get out. Get out of my house. I can't stand to look at you. My house. Our house. But I needed her to think it was her house. It was all part of the plan. I stood up, walked calmly to the door, grabbed my jacket, and before stepping out, I turned to her, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. Oh, I'll get out, all right. But maybe you should check your email in the morning. And then I walked out, leaving her sputtering in rage. She had no idea what was coming. This subtle turn was important. It planted a seed of doubt without revealing my hand. The next morning, bright and early, an email landed in her inbox. It was from my lawyer, a formal notification of intent to divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and, importantly, attaching copies of the photos from the locket, the ones with her and Mr. Tropical Resort. It also contained a detailed breakdown of asset division requests, heavily skewed in my favor, thanks to the lawyer's advice and my proactive financial transfers. She expected me to just move out and disappear. She did not expect a preemptive, legally sound strike. I was at a friend's place when my phone started blowing up. First texts, then calls, then increasingly hysterical voicemails from Sarah. I ignored them all. I imagine her waking up, seeing the email, and her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Her initial rage would have been directed at me, but then she'd realize the implications. Her secret was out, not just to me, but now officially documented. Her lawyer, if she even had one yet, would tell her exactly how much trouble she was in. All her carefully crafted lies, her gaslighting, her contempt, they were all now Exhibit A in a legal proceeding. Later that day, she actually showed up at my friend's doorstep, banging on the door. My friend, who knew bits and pieces of the situation, handled it brilliantly, telling her I wasn't there and she should communicate through lawyers. Sarah was absolutely livid, screaming that I was ruining her life, that I was a monster, that I had no right. She still hadn't grasped that she was the author of her own misfortune. Her self-pity and anger were so blinding that she couldn't see past her own entitlement. The satisfaction wasn't immediate, but knowing that the tables had finally turned, that she was now facing consequences instead of just dishing out cruelty, was a quiet, powerful vindication. This was just the beginning of her brutal reckoning. The aftermath of the legal notice was pure chaos from her end, and surprisingly calm from mine. She tried every trick in the book. She sent me weeping texts, claiming she'd made a mistake, that she loved me and missed me, and that we could work it out. Then, when those failed, she'd switch to furious threats, vowing to take me for everything and ruin my reputation. She even tried to contact my family and friends, spinning a wild tale of my supposed infidelity and how I was abandoning her. Luckily, I had already given my close circle a heads up, so her attempts mostly fell flat or even backfired, strengthening their support for me. My lawyer advised me to block her number and all her social media, which I did. The constant barrage of her emotional manipulation was exhausting, and cutting off that direct line of communication was crucial for my mental health. I was finally starting to feel like I could breathe again, even amidst the ongoing legal battle. The house, which had once felt like a cage, was now a haven because I wasn't in it. I was staying with my friend, and the sense of peace was profound. What she didn't know was that while she was busy trying to salvage her image and attack me, I was diligently working with my lawyer to gather even more evidence. Remember that casual comment about her family friend on the work trip that turned into a leisure detour? Well, my lawyer, with a private investigator, dug into that. Turns out, Mr. Tropical Resort wasn't just a family friend. He was a senior partner at a rival firm, and they had been seeing each other for over a year. The work conference was a complete fabrication, covering up a romantic getaway. This new information, detailing the extent and duration of her betrayal, was damning. It moved her actions from a mistake to a premeditated, long-term affair, making her legal position even weaker. This wasn't just about protecting myself anymore, it was about ensuring she faced the full weight of her deceit. The revelation about her affair partner being a senior partner at a rival firm added another layer of delicious irony to the whole situation. It wasn't just a fling, it was a professional risk she was taking, all while portraying herself as the diligent, career-focused wife. This information became a powerful piece of leverage for my lawyer. It showcased a pattern of deceptive behavior that extended beyond just our marriage. When her lawyer finally responded to ours, their tone was initially aggressive, trying to paint me as the villain, claiming emotional abuse and abandonment. But when my lawyer presented the detailed evidence, not just the locket photos, but now the PI's report, phone records, which showed frequent late-night calls between her and Mr. Partner during her work hours, and even travel itineraries, their stance visibly softened. They started talking about mediation and amicable resolution rather than a prolonged court battle. The evidence was irrefutable. She couldn't lie her way out of this one, not with official documentation. I attended the first mediation session with my lawyer. Sarah was there with hers, looking considerably less confident and more disheveled than usual. She kept shooting me venomous glances, but I just maintained a neutral, almost bored expression. When the mediator asked her to explain her version of events, she tried to stick to her misunderstanding and gag gift story, but it lacked conviction. My lawyer calmly laid out the facts, the timelines, the evidence. Her lawyer looked increasingly uncomfortable. Sarah's face crumpled. It wasn't remorse, it was pure, frustrated fury at being caught and cornered. The bitter bitch was finally getting a dose of reality. The sense of justice, cold and unyielding, was starting to settle in. The mediation sessions were a brutal dance. Sarah continued to oscillate between feigned remorse and aggressive accusations. One minute she'd be sobbing, claiming she missed our life and couldn't imagine a future without me, the next she'd be spitting venom, declaring I was trying to destroy her. It was exhausting to witness, but I remained steadfast. My lawyer had coached me well: stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't engage with her emotional theatrics. During one particularly dramatic session, she tried to accuse me of being emotionally abusive throughout our marriage, claiming I was cold and distant, which drove her into another man's arms. She looked directly at me, expecting a reaction, a flicker of guilt. I just met her gaze with a blank stare. Then, my lawyer calmly presented evidence of her controlling behavior, her consistent gaslighting, and the financial irregularities she'd overseen in our joint accounts, subtle withdrawals that were hard to track without deep diving. It was a complete turnaround. Suddenly, she was on the defensive. Her lawyer, who had initially tried to push the aggrieved wife narrative, now looked genuinely exasperated. This strategic exposure of her own manipulative tendencies was a crucial turning point. It wasn't just about the affair anymore, it was about exposing her character. The mediator started to lean heavily on Sarah to be more realistic and cooperative. The power dynamic had completely shifted. She realized, for the first time, that her usual tactics weren't working. Her lies were failing, and her carefully constructed image was crumbling. The look of utter defeat on her face, tinged with a desperate anger, was something I never thought I'd see. It was grim, but it was also a profound validation. By the way, if you're finding this story relatable or helpful, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out and lets me know these stories resonate with you. The final settlement was reached after weeks of grueling back and forth. Sarah got significantly less than she initially demanded. The house was mine, with me buying out her much-reduced equity. She lost out on a substantial portion of the joint savings she'd expected, due to her financial shenanigans being uncovered. The court also factored in her prolonged affair and her attempts at character defamation against me, which my lawyer expertly presented as malicious. She was absolutely incandescent when the final terms were laid out. She tried to refuse to sign, but her own lawyer, visibly frustrated with her antics, basically told her it was the best she was going to get, given the overwhelming evidence against her. Watching her sign those papers, her hands shaking with fury, was cathartic in a way I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't triumph, not exactly. It was more like the heavy weight I'd been carrying for months finally being lifted. The divorce was finalized quickly after that, a mere formality once the settlement was agreed upon. I was officially free. The immediate aftermath was a strange mix of emptiness and relief. The emptiness was for the future I'd lost, the dream that had died. But the relief was overwhelming. The constant anxiety, the feeling of being gaslit and belittled, the perpetual dread, it was all gone. My home felt like my home again. I started redecorating, painting over the colors she'd chosen, making it truly my own space, free from her energy. I threw out anything that reminded me of her, replacing it with things that brought me joy or peace. It was a slow, deliberate process of reclaiming my life. Now, looking back, it's been almost 6 months since the divorce was finalized, and I can honestly say I'm healing. It's not a straight line, some days are still harder than others, especially when a random memory pops up. But the crushing weight of betrayal is no longer a constant presence. I've reconnected with friends and family who supported me through it all, and their presence has been invaluable. I even started a new hobby, woodworking, which is surprisingly therapeutic and a great way to channel my energy. What I've learned from this brutal experience is profound. Firstly, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't let someone gaslight you into doubting your own perception. Secondly, protect yourself, always. Emotionally, yes, but also legally and financially. Don't be naive. People you love can still hurt you profoundly, and sometimes, they will do it without a shred of remorse. Thirdly, and this is a big one, you are not responsible for someone else's choices. Sarah's decision to cheat and lie was hers alone. It wasn't because I wasn't enough, or because I did something wrong. It was a reflection of her character, not mine. Accepting that has been incredibly liberating. Finally, healing is a process, not an event. It takes time, effort, and a lot of self-compassion. I'm not bitter, not anymore. I'm just wiser. And significantly stronger. I wouldn't wish this pain on anyone, but if you're in a similar boat, know that you're not alone, and you can get through it. There is a light on the other side, and it's brighter than you think. The process of rebuilding wasn't just about physical spaces, it was about rebuilding my self-worth. For so long, her constant criticism had chipped away at me. She made me feel small, inadequate, and uninteresting. When she left, or rather, was forced out, it felt like a void initially, but then it became an opportunity. I started doing things I loved that she always dismissed, going hiking, trying out new restaurants that didn't cater to her incredibly specific tastes, even just binge-watching shows she'd called boring. I also took a closer look at my career. For years, I'd been comfortable, not pushing myself, partly because she always made me feel like her career was the only one that mattered. Now, with no one to impress or placate, I started taking on more challenging projects, pushing for promotions I'd previously shied away from. It felt good to excel, to receive praise for my efforts, to know that my achievements were mine and not subject to her dismissive comments. One significant change was my approach to relationships, not necessarily romantic ones yet, but with everyone. I became more discerning, more attuned to genuine sincerity versus performative gestures. I learned to identify red flags much earlier, recognizing manipulative patterns that I'd once ignored or rationalized away. It's like a new filter was installed in my perception. It made me a better judge of character, not just for potential partners, but for friendships and professional interactions too. This newfound clarity was a direct result of the brutal lessons I learned, and while the tuition was high, the education was invaluable.